Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. You've heard the expression, leave it all in the ring, give everything. And such was the case with MACAULAY McGOWAN, who lost a wide 12-round decision to the European super-welterweight champion Abass Baraou. But my God, McGowan, he fought through absolutely everything. And after 12 rounds, yes, he'd been, like I say, widely outpointed, beaten up. His face was a mask of blood coming out of his mouth, his nose. I think his right eye was swollen badly, but gave absolutely everything and never, ever stopped trying to win, not for a single split second. But Baraou was superior in every department. Baraou, you'll remember from earlier in the year in March, beat Sam Eggington on a majority decision. Should have been unanimous, in my opinion. And I like Sam Eggington a lot. I think he's a terrific fighter, but he got beaten. Baraou had an impressive amateur career, but is now tearing up some trees in the pro game. He moves to 16 wins and 1 defeat. And the defeat was a split decision loss back in 2020 to Jack Culcay. Kind of a bit of an upset, I suppose you could say. But since then, he hasn't really put a foot wrong. The Eggington fight was for the vacant EBU title. This was his first defence, and this was over in Bolton, so he's beginning to enjoy coming over here, isn't he? Two wins out of two for Abass Baraou in Britain so far this year. Who's to say he won't come back again? But at 29, he really wants to be. He's at his peak. It shows as well. He did this 12 rounds at a high pace, and at the end of it, didn't look out of puff at all. In fact, he was between rounds. He looked absolutely fine, as opposed to McGowan, who looked exhausted after about 8 rounds. But Baraou actually came out. He was kind of having a look at McGowan. McGowan was actually began quite fast. McGowan, he was popping his jab nicely, and that was a little bit surprising. I gave McGowan the first round. Baraou, one of the main tools that he uses, is one of his strengths, without question, is his jab. And in the second round, he came out like a different fighter and started pinging his own jab and totally took the initiative away from McGowan. And about a minute in, a fight broke out because Baraou was standing right in front of McGowan, smiling, exchanging, trying to beat him up as well as beat him. McGowan wasn't moving backwards. He was coming forward trying to, match Baraou. But Baraou just had that classier look about his work. It was, I don't want to say that McGowan's work was ragged, but it was less refined because Baraou was he seemed to know when to fire what punches at what point. They were slicker, they were sharper. He was moving nicely, controlling the angles and the range far more. Like I say, they were up close and personal in that second round, and that kind of continued throughout the fight. There were frequent, minutes of entire minutes of rounds where they were just almost banging heads. But again, Baraou just looking so much more skillful, like he was a step ahead, a punch ahead, half a step ahead. And it was kind of, you knew McGowan, if he was going to win the fight, would have to outwork Baraou. And there were times when Baraou was like, okay, I'll let him shoot his bolt and then I'll fire my own punches back, which he did. McGowan's work rate he'd land maybe 40% of his punches, 30-40%. But then Baraou would come back with maybe less amount of punches, but by far a more impressive connect rate. And this pattern kind of went on until about, like I say, the 7th or 8th round, when McGowan began to look very weary and very beaten up. And in the corner, like I say, he had his team around him. Joe Gallagher was there, pepping him up and trying to get the motor running again. But he was taking in huge gulps of air, McGowan, whereas Baraou would sit there, in his corner, looking very superior, not problem, didn't really look out of puff. He just controlled the pace very, very well, and it was a high pace as well. But McGowan had to fight quickly. He had to fight at a quick pace because he wasn't going to outslick Baraou, just as Sam Eggington found. Baraou, by the way, I thought Eggington, it was a split decision. I thought Baraou beat Eggington, but Eggington probably won, in my opinion, probably won about 4 rounds. McGowan, I I didn't really score it round for round, to be honest with you, but I'd probably give him about three rounds. But they were hard-earned rounds, whereas Eggington was, in my opinion, clearly beaten, despite that 114 card. He was less beaten up than McGowan. McGowan really was beaten up. And after 8 rounds, it became a question of, I've got a third of the fight to go. Can I hang tough? Can I survive the distance? McGowan, again, never stopped trying to win. He landed some good hooks. I mean, there were times when they were standing, opposing each other, phone booth warfare, and they were both firing these huge hooks. McGowan had his hands up for most of the time. There were a couple of nice little, he kind of put not the earmuffs on, but he had a high guard, whereas Baraou was a bit more looser, a bit more relying on his reflexes. Baraou worked the body well, but then neglected it in the last third of the fight, which I thought was a strange tactic. I thought if he carried on banging that, as Teddy Atlas likes to say, putting the water in the basement back into the body, I thought he might have got McGowan out of there. But because McGowan at times was really sagging, and then he'd come back, he'd sort of fire back through sheer willpower. But there was no doubt who won. I was delighted to see MACAULAY McGOWAN last the distance because he maintains his record of never having been stopped. He's now got 20 wins, 5 defeats, and 2 draws. He's now got 5 KOs in the win column, so he was hard pushed to beat Abass Baraou to knock him out. Baraou seems to have a good chin. He did land flush on a few occasions, but Baraou wasn't bothered. Couldn't put a dent in him, really. But, yeah, no one's going to want to fight Abass Baraou because he's good. He's going to jump up to world level now, I'm sure of it. But no one's going to want to fight MACAULAY McGOWAN either because McGowan he's a hard night's work for anyone. He really is. To beat him, you've really got to earn it. And he may have lost 5 times, but if you look at the opponents, Tyler Denny won a split over him over 10 rounds. He actually lost 3 on the bounce. He lost to a guy whose name escapes me, like an unknown guy who I think was undefeated but only had 1 or 2 fights. It was a weird one. He lost a unanimous decision. Then he lost to Kieran Conway, unanimous decision. Both those were over 10. And believe it or not, he went over to Spain and fought Sergio Martinez, who at the time was about 50, I think 48, 50, something like that. He lost a 10-round decision over there. So he's, have gloves will travel in the past, lost 3 on the bounce, came back. He hasn't got many wins over what I would say were people who are really above journeyman level. But what a tough guy. And he got this chance to change his life for the EBU title. At least he can say, I went the distance with a very, very good EBU champion and hung tough. And he had his kids, I think he had his kids' names on his shorts. They can be very, very proud of their dad. Abass Baraou, though, we're talking super welterweights. He wants to get into the mix at world level. He's got Wassman behind him, Sowlands if you prefer. So I don't see why something can't be arranged. He'd be a good voluntary for any of the champs. 16-1. He's lost before, so maybe sometimes you get a loss on your record, and the champs think, he's been beaten before, I can take him. He's a hard night's work, definitely. Anyway, did you see this fight? It was on Channel 5. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know how good you think Baraou is and how far he can go. And can McGowan come back? That sort of fight takes a few years off your career, I think. It's a tough fight. But let me know what you think. Comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and support Joe's Stunner Boxing. And also hit the like button as well. Thanks for your time as always. Get you later. Bye for now.